and we're back.
It's real.
It's real.
Working.
Holy Moses. I just want to let everybody know that it's good to be back and doing these lives. I miss them actually. And so anyway, so here we are. So I am with one of my new coaches. This is Gordon. So I just want to give him some time to introduce himself.
I'm just happy the fact that this is working and that we figured this all out, right?
Yeah.
Man, just happy to be here. What's up, guys? My name is Gordon Lake. I'm just going to give like a brief background. So I currently am down in Greenville, South Carolina. I've owned a CrossFit affiliate for the last 6 years, been in the space for the last 8 years, have literally been involved with health and wellness since, probably since I was 16. My parents were very much involved in it, and I remember sitting in the gym watching them do that. And then I had some time in high school where I started to get bullied, and I said, all right, I got to do something different. So started working out and just had fallen in love with it, and really turned it into my profession, so to say, several years ago. And now I have the great opportunity to run my affiliate with my wife. I work for CrossFit as well as a Southeast director. I own a company that trains CrossFit athletes, now also works with Athena. And man, just aside from that, just excited to be here. Athena, I've watched your journey over the last several months, and I told you, probably months ago, I would reach out to you just how cool it was to see your authenticity and transparency, and how in this world, right, we need more people who are being themselves and being real. And so just excited to go on this journey with you and the other coaches and really just
There you go.
That's my neighbor's car. That's my neighbor's car. No, but just excited to be on this journey with you and really just.
It was a
aggressive car.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Hey, the fact it's live though, right? No, just really be able to go on this journey with you and be able to work on the 3 buckets as we're calling it, and really being able to understand, right, how we're just not changing and working on one facet of your life, we're working on multiple facets of your life. And so with that, I did want to kind of throw that question to you. Help everyone watching understand on the 3 buckets, right? Because I think a lot of us, right, I've had coaches in my day, and I have never taken the viewpoint that you have because I thought that coach can be everything. And the reality is that they can't be. So give us your thoughts on that 3 bucket.
I had some time during the transition it came from I was looking at our seminar, getting ready for this summit that's going to be happening down in Nashville, and I was just reviewing our course material. I was looking for the coach, that week, and like, who is the best choice going to be? And I was reviewing our material, and we talk about in the course, like the dangers when coaches try to like wear all the hats. And we tell them, especially when it comes to like the nutrition side, what can happen, like a really good scenario is, say you're working with an athlete one-on-one. Nutrition can be a very sensitive topic with a lot of people. And then, you do an accountability check-in with them in the morning, for instance, and they miss their accountability. They're like, oh, they don't want to tell you what they ate. And then what happens is then they're afraid to come to the gym later. So that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. So we recommend in the course, separate them out for these reasons, so that if one falls, they all don't spiral, because that's what happens.
Interesting.
And yeah. So I was reviewing the stuff, and I'm like, wait a minute, why have I been doing that? Like, why haven't I been following my own advice? Like, why, with all the coaches that were reaching out and the ones that were kind of like in the pool that I thought would make good coaches, it's like, why haven't I thought of that? So I ran out to the box and started doing, the board. And that's kind of how I came up with like the 3 different areas. Because I mean, if you think about it, should something happen, the reason why it's good to separate them out is one, they're very different focuses, but there's a
Yeah.
lot in each bucket.
Yeah.
It's not like one coach is handling one thing. One coach handles a myriad of things, like kind of under that pillar, it's a lot, just the one. So it just made sense to me by like, whether I asked for the pause or not, I got the pause, got a chance to look at it and say, okay, I'm going to redesign it going forward.
Well, and we've touched on this before, right? And
Mhm.
touching on the spiritual aspect of this whole thing, I think
Yeah.
we can laugh. I know your belief system, I know my belief system, and I know that we tend to have our own plans of what we think and how we think things are going to go. And then the
Yeah.
Lord has a way of just putting some barriers or roadblocks or little speed bumps. And I
Well,
think
he
it comes
did.
down to how we respond in those times that really starts to show our resolve and our character. And so when the transition and change came upon it, right? I think personally that could have been an opportunity to things could have went downhill, right? You could have easily been like, you know what? I need a break from working out. I need a break from trying to get my nutrition back online. Just let me
Mhm.
breathe. And so help me understand, like, just through that transition, how you were able to stay disciplined, not so much motivated, right? But
Yeah.
disciplined to just handle all this change and transition that's come your way.
I think that's something that we could talk about here today too, because somebody asked me that very question a couple days ago, like, the difference between like motivation and discipline, and sometimes the difference between being motivated and inspired, if that
Mm,
makes sense. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I go through periods of the day where I'm not motivated at all. But what does get me excited is when I'm inspired. And I think being inspired to like finish this and do what I said I was gonna do, that was
I
the
love that.
driver. It wasn't because I was motivated. Like, when you're inspired, that's gonna stick around way longer than if you were just, because motivated comes and goes, like, by the hour
Yes.
sometimes, you
Yes.
know?
Uh, and by
Five
depending
o'clock
upon if I
every
had
morning,
enough,
I'm like,
yeah, if I had enough sleep or enough coffee, motivation is going to look different, right?
yeah.
Those dogs are barking. So with that, like, stay right there, right? So in my experience working with athletes for years now, we talk a lot about motivation and discipline. Motivation is fleeting. Motivation comes and goes. So to me, discipline is habits that we create over time, right? So how have you used that discipline during this transition to be like, you know what, I'm sticking to this? And then on those hard days where you're like, I don't know, everything's weaning. How did you stay on track?
I think the discipline part, like, I think you hit it on the head. The discipline part is, like, you get into the habit of doing something and you do it like clockwork every day. You don't think about it anymore. You get up, right? You
Mm,
make the bed. You don't think about making the bed anymore. You just do it. Like, I would go into the kitchen, I'd figure out, like, okay, what's my meal? Like, it becomes such a habit that it wasn't hard to stick with that.
okay.
The physical pieces, like making the meal, getting the workout done, that I think was the easy part. It was the mind stuff that was hard during that time. Maybe like you're saying, maybe it looked seamless to everybody else, but it
Mhm.
wasn't at all.
And so stay right there with the mind aspect, right? Because I
Yeah.
think as we talk about these 3 buckets, you touched on something that a lot of people kinda gloss over, and so, being able to
Mhm.
coach athletes, I have a sports psychologist on the team that I work with because I tell athletes, like,
Cool.
that mental side of it, you and I both know this, Athena, is such a large part that often gets overlooked, right? So
Yeah.
when you were starting, you went out to your board, you started creating these buckets, like, what did that look like for you? And I know you're still fleshing it out, right? You and I are still fleshing it out, but, like,
Yeah.
why was this such an important piece to you?
I think for the exact reason that you just said. People think that she's gonna work out and she's gonna move, and presto,
Yeah.
at the end of the year, there's gonna be this magic reveal and all this progress is gonna be done. But the problem is like that mindset piece controls everything you do. From the time that you wake up, you roll out of bed, you stub your toe, you decide right there, whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. If you decide it's going to be a bad day, those decisions that happen after that are controlled by whatever you decided when you woke up. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything. It's when you go to this, you know, like there's this market that I go to all the time. It's called Kowalski's, and it has this amazing deli, everything there. Well, you know what I mean? Like, your whatever mindset you have when you walk in the store is going to determine whether you're going to stay on plan or not. I mean, it controls everything you do. Whether you go to a function or you go to a celebration, you know that like a bunch of stuff is going to be there. And you know what I mean? Like, I know what my weaknesses are. And I'm like, do I want to put myself in that situation? Or do I just want to be like, hey, I'm working on something right now, and I hope that you'll understand, because I know
Yeah,
me.
we got to stay there for a second, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. So I was having a conversation with two of my really good friends the other day, and one of them is at the beach with her family, and she's got some goals that she's trying to attain, and her family, maybe trying to steer more towards going off plan. You said that earlier. Like, what a great way to put that,
Hmm.
going off plan.
Hmm.
All right, so help me understand this. People pleasing is a large part of what I know I've struggled with in my life, and I'm sure you have as well a little bit. So talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
that, how you've worked on being able to articulate to those loved ones, hey,
Hmm.
I got something I'm working towards, and I want to stick to this without, I don't want to say without offending them because we can't control other people's emotions, but like, how have you grown the confidence to have those conversations?
You know what? I just put it on me. And like, I'll use something like an example, like a birthday, right? Like, I get invited to a lot of birthdays, and I'm like, I can't be around cake because I don't have any self
Hmm,
control.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I just put it on me, and I'm like, look, I started this journey. I can't be around it because inevitably I'm going to eat it, whether I will or not. You know what I mean? I don't want to take the risk right now. And I usually
appreciate it.
just
I
put
love
it
that.
on me. And then they're like, totally get it, Athena. I totally understand. So I don't put it on them. I just make a joke and put it on me, like,
I
can't do
love
it.
that though too. Like, I am a firm believer. Like, the circle that you surround yourself with matters so much.
It
And because
does.
I'm sure you've been in situations where you were like, hey, you know what? I just can't be around that. And they're like, oh no, it's fine. You can have a little bit. Don't worry about it. And like, I've grown in my maturity the last couple of years to understand, like, I want others around me who are going to challenge me to be better. And you said this way earlier, challenge me to my word of what I say I'm gonna do. And so
Right.
have you learned, not just through this process, but in the past, of like how much your circle matters? And then how do you audit that circle? Because I think the position you're in right now, right? You've got a big goal, man. This is not a cakewalk, no pun intended.
No pun
This is
intended, right?
yeah.
Duh.
This is not a cakewalk. So who have you surrounded yourself with? And then how do you audit that circle where you're like, hey, you know what? I need to make sure these people are 100% on board to help me get there without, I don't want to say trying to derail you, but without like forcing any false guilt.
When you talk about like your circle, I feel like that has to be audited all the time,
Mm,
because through something like this, you grow and you change all the time. You know what I mean? Like, in my brain, I wasn't the same person that I was 2 months ago,
mm,
because so much has happened in that 2 months that sometimes it does change your perspective. So when you say like auditing, it's not just like your support system who's going to support you on the food stuff wise, but it's the support system that is going to encourage you, that's going to, give you that sounding board when you need it, when the
mm.
stuff gets hard. It's like your circle. And is that circle at giving you more stress and anxiety, and they're helping you along the way, and they're encouraging you, or they're, I don't want to, like, I've heard this phrase a lot, and I remember when I told Tosh this one time, he was like, oh, Dina, don't say that. But I've heard it, and I'm trying to think of a different way to say it. When you say like misery loves company, I know there's another way to say this without, it's not misery per se. Um, uh, how else could we say that, Gordon? Like, because that's not what I
Yeah.
mean.
No, to me, right, it is, my circle is a bunch of disciplined individuals who want greater for me than I want for myself. And they're willing to hold me to that, which to that point, there's going to be some uncomfortability. And so I have, I come from a military family. And so
Yeah.
I was raised a certain way, and I've carried that into my adulthood. And it's like, I want people who are willing to challenge me, like, hey, you said this. I'm
Right.
just holding you to that without getting offended and actually thanking that person. Like, how crazy is that, Athena? If someone in your circle went, hey, so you said you were going to walk every day for 30 minutes and you didn't do
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm just here to
Yeah.
hold you to that.
Right.
Most people, honestly, most people would probably either get offended, recluse themselves, or maybe blow it off. And so for any of us to be able to have the foresight to accept that and be like, you know what, that person loves me enough to challenge me, to want me to be better. Is that what we're tracking
Mhm.
with?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think of some good examples on, like, what has happened in the past. I've had friends at the time that were like, "Oh, you're going to CrossFit. Well, you have all your CrossFit friends now." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like they when I think what happens a lot, and this is something that we talk about in the course too, when you are having a hard time watching and seeing somebody else excel and
Mm,
celebrate, that's hard, especially on a journey like this when you're struggling and you're not making progress, because every party is like, what are they doing that I'm not doing?
mm.
Why are they having all the success and I'm not? You know what I mean? So it happens.
So stay right there, right? So comparison is the thief of joy. So
Totally.
how do you get out of that cycle?
I don't think I'm in that cycle anymore. Like, I stopped doing that, like, during the first half when I
Yeah.
learned, like, everybody's speed is different. Everybody's body is different. Like, time I say this all the time. I wrote about it. I repeat it. Like, you have to make peace with time.
Mm. I love what you said too about like auditing your circle like every 2 months. And
You have to do it all
so
the time.
I love Carol Pasquale. So she made a comment and I love her to death, but she said the best thing. She's like, so many toxic habits are seen as normal and
Yeah.
wanted pushed to everyone's lives. And so the fact that you said, hey, I audit my circle, you don't do that as a selfish thing, as in like, hey, I'm better than you. But I
No.
believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're doing that as a way to be like, I know I want the best people around me who are going to push me to be the best version of Athena I can be.
Yes. Yes. So, one example might have been like, when I came up with this idea for the 3 coaches, there was some people in that circle that thought it was pretty funny,
Hmm.
you know, and that's not gonna help me,
Yeah.
you know?
And then so we talk about coping, right? And so when you
Mhm.
have those in your inner circle who may not believe or look differently upon your viewpoint, how'd you cope
Yeah.
with that?
I mean,
Don't give me BS, give me the real answer.
I mean, like, I think to some degree, you just have to do some unfollowing, and you
Yeah,
just have to turn the noise off, and that's all you
yeah.
can do.
So going
It's
back to
not
these,
done from, like, sorry,
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's not ever done from, like, a place of, like, malice. It really
Yes.
does come from a place of, like, it's distraction for me, and if
Yep.
it's not making me feel good, it's not bringing me joy,
Yes.
then sometimes you just have to turn it off, you
And
know?
and we're gonna
You
talk
wish
about
them
like a
well.
little bit of, yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about that later too. But like,
Yeah,
so staying with your circle, right? So we've got three
yeah,
coaches. So we've got
mhm,
me handling more of the mental spiritual journey.
yep,
And then we've got Pete right now doing the
yep,
body.
yep,
And then we've got Miss Carolyn doing the
yep,
nutrition.
right.
And so who else would you say is in your circle right now that's supporting you through this?
My family, my parents, my brothers, and then lots of friends, lots of
Mhm.
people that I know. I would say
And
that's
then
my circle.
as this thing grows, right? You
Yeah,
think that circle is going to get bigger or smaller?
I think it's gonna get smaller.
How does that make you feel?
Good,
Okay.
actually.
Tell me more about that.
I'm like, uh, I keep my friend circle small because it gets too overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like, social media is like one of those places where you can have a lot of acquaintances
Mm,
and people can
mm,
interact with you all day long. But the problem is that do those people really know you? Do you
mm.
really know them like I would my best friend? There's certain things that I would naturally share with like one of my closest friends or my mom that I wouldn't share with, somebody on my Instagram,
I
if that
love that,
makes
and
sense.
no, and I love it. We're gonna get off on a tangent. I just want everyone to know we actually had an agenda of what we were talking about. We got to touch on some stuff. No, I love that too, and like, in my personal opinion is like social media has turned us into having superficial relationships, and we
Yeah.
put on facades, right? And I mean, this is a lot of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to our Instagram, excuse me, it is highlight reels over and over and
It's
over.
true.
And like, if just being honest, like as a married man, we can all say like, "Oh my God, everyone looks so happy all the time," but everybody, have issues that we're dealing with. And so with that, right? I love
Mhm.
what you said about like social media is what it is. Like, you are
Yeah.
doing these lives, and I believe you're doing these lives because you have a light that is being shown throughout the world to inspire people on their own journeys. But you and I both know that we talked about that as you climb higher, as your light gets brighter, there's going to be more arrows, you know, thrown at you. There's going to be more stones thrown at you. And so I really think, right, and this is just me and you, not everyone else watching, but me and you, right, is
Yeah.
man, being able to handle those conversations when people are saying crap to you, being able to get you to be like that Ted Lasso goldfish, to where you see that comment, you erase that comment and let it go. And so when that
Mhm.
stuff pops up now, how much of that is controlling Athena's emotion and then in turn Athena's day?
I would say a lot. People always say, "Oh, Athena, you handle all your comments so well." Maybe on when I have time to respond and I have time to think about it. But that's a different scenario when you're like casually trolling around or somebody sends you a DM, you open it up and it's a screenshot. Look at what this person said about you.
Mm,
Like you can't filter those the same way, and they're going to hit you however they hit you. And then, like when you're reading one of these and you're like, well, this is a lie. Why would somebody say that? Sometimes it takes me a while to process that,
and so that was gonna be my
because,
question. Like, are you a
right?
processor? Or are you in the moment like, "I'm hitting back right now?"
No, no, I used to be, but then I started a little game and about 5 years ago when the journey started and it just works. And so the game was you can respond you can respond to bad comments and you can respond to good comments, but whatever you put out there, do it in a way where the question was, if God had a sense of humor, how would he respond to this? And so that's the game that I started playing. And then it was always like, well, how creative can I make this? Like, and then just have fun with it. And then after a while, it's like that thing that you just talked about a little while ago, the more you do it and the
Yeah.
more you do it, it just becomes something that you don't even think about anymore. That part,
Mm.
because you have time to think about it, right? You're like, and you turn it into a game. I hadn't had to do that on the other side yet. I hadn't had to deal with, massive influx of
Yeah.
"What did you do?" type
Yeah.
of thing, or, whatever their assumption was.
Mm.
I hadn't had to go
And
through that yet.
that didn't derail you off your journey?
No way.
Did it shake your foundation?
I would say it shook my brain for a
Mm.
while.
Yeah.
My mental, like, because it was a lot. It was
And
overwhelming.
did you expect, this is gonna such an influencer question, right?
What?
Influencer question. Did you expect the outpouring of interest into this journey that's
No
like has
way.
come from it? Yeah.
No, no,
And so from
not
that, do you feel a sense of responsibility and like, hey, I'm gonna see this through?
totally,
Yeah.
totally. But I think it's more like I think the way that I put it out there originally was because I know me. Like, maybe I didn't feel that way at the moment I hit send, and part of my brain was like, I'm doing, like, I'm calling somebody out. But I think the heart of it was, looking back, is like, this was a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Like, I need something drastic, something outside of, what I would consider like completely norm to get
Hmm.
this done. And it's going to have to be in a way where it's out there. I've put it out there, and I'm not going to allow myself to look like a jerk. So I'm
Yeah,
going to
that's good.
finish what I started.
Yeah.
It forces me to finish what I started.
Yeah, and that's it right there, which I think is so difficult for so many people. I think we
But
all have great ambitions
yeah,
and goals, but the follow through, like I had coffee with a great friend on Thursday, and her and I were talking, and she was just like, I never want to be the victim. I never want to make excuses. I just want to push forward and get to my goals. And I think there's such a lost art. And you said this earlier, like I want to do what I say I'm going to do. And like, how much
yeah,
of that is lost in today's society where people can be like, hey, I said I'm going to lose 100 pounds, or I said I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to do that. Like, just the amount of respect I have for people like, hey, I gave my word, I'm going to do that. It's
yeah.
phenomenal.
Thank you. It's
Well, yeah,
hard.
now,
Ooh,
now we just got to crush it, right? So let's stay on this, right? And so
it's
you
hard.
and I, you and I have talked a little bit about this off camera, and I
Yeah.
don't know how much you've talked openly about this, right?
Mm,
And so I was a big believer that when you and I started our conversation, I was very honest. I said, hey, I'm a big believer that if the Lord is going to ordain something, he is going to make it clear as day to you and me. And so
yeah.
going back, when you threw that Hail Mary, was did the Lord have a hand in all this? Or was it just like by luck and chance that this happened?
I don't believe in luck and chance, at least not for me.
Yeah.
I believe that, like, there's a reason and a season for everything. And even sometimes when, like, those seasons aren't going according to plan, there's a there's a reason that I needed to grow from it, or something that I was supposed to learn from it.
Mm.
That's just the way I see it. I don't always know what it is, and it doesn't feel like that when it's happening. You know,
Like I don't think this is supposed to feel like this.
Jeez Louise. Does not feel like that when it's happening, but, like, even now, like, what, we're 2.5 weeks out, and I can look back and be like, "Okay, got it," and it
What
was
a
clear.
what a great perspective though, to carry in, and I'm gonna say the non-victim mindset where you're like, hey, you know what? There's going to be a season, and
Yeah.
that season was not wasted, which I absolutely love your mind frame on that. That season was not wasted. There was fruit that came from that season that you're still
Mhm.
gonna carry forward, even if
Totally.
at the end of the day you and I never understand, right? Why that
Right.
happened, but having that mind frame. And I love the fact and maybe if you can give some advice to those
Yeah.
watching. I love the fact you didn't stay in that victim mentality because I think it could be easy where we can be like, oh, woe is me. I'm in this valley. Things aren't working out. Like I deal with athletes every single day, right? And I see this often where people are like, life is just hard. I'm stressed out. You don't understand. Like, how do you not dwell in that victim state?
Um, because it spreads rapidly. Like, say, for instance, I'm having a bad day, or I'm having a hard time. Like, I'll allow myself to feel that day.
Ooh,
And it's not to say that it won't go into tomorrow, sometimes into the next day, but, like, if you don't figure out a way to turn it around and look at it differently, it spreads like a virus, like it'll make you sick, kind of thing.
mm,
And so I always like, get it out, allow yourself to feel it, be pissed off, like a comment or something. So I got a really bad DM the other day, and I'm like, you piece of crap. But, like, if I take that to bed with me and I wake up with that tomorrow, then tomorrow brain is gonna be even worse, and
mm,
then you're like, "Well, screw this whole thing. I
mm.
don't know why I'm trying so hard." And then that's the moment where you go for, like, you're out, you're getting
Yeah,
your, coffee at Starbucks, and you're like, "Maybe I will have that lemon loaf
yeah.
at first." You know what I mean? That's when it happens. So I just try myself, like, change the channel quickly. Sometimes I'm not always successful at changing the channel in one day, like when this all happened, like, it took the better part of a week to kind of work through, like, okay, it's changing. Not happy about it, but you got to move on.
God,
you know?
thank you for the transparency, right? Because I think you could have easily responded, you know what? I'm never in the valley. Things are great all the time. We're just doing
No.
this forward. But no, like,
Mm-mm.
thank you for that. And I love the fact that you said, hey, I give the time and the space to deal with the emotion, which I love. You don't compartmentalize it, you don't repress it, you give
Yeah.
it the time and space, and then you move forward. Is that something that you have done over time, kind of like a muscle that you flexed, or is this something you've just learned along the way?
I learned from who I consider more of a mentor now. When I put myself into therapy back in 2012, like I knew that I was going to have to deal with my past eventually. And so when I started going through therapy, like that was one of the things that she taught me. And I would say it is a muscle
Mm,
for sure. For sure. And it, again, like it's not like there hasn't been down seasons, like
yeah,
there's been
yes.
several times in like the last 4 years that I allowed this little choo-choo train to go on for a couple months. But at some point you're like, if you don't change the channel, you're just going to continue going downhill.
Yeah, that's good. Well, and there's
It-
people often forget this, right? I think our
yeah.
lives are mountaintop experiences and valleys, and people often forget that growth happens in the valley. If you've ever went hiking, right, there is
Mhm.
vegetation that is growing in the valley. Right now, it may not be as great as on the mountaintop, but I think we have to remain steadfast, and that growth can happen not in the
Mhm.
highest of highs in our life. And to me personally, I think that's when like character is developed. When you are maybe in those trenches or in a dark place, but you still know that I can learn and grow from this. And like you
Yeah.
said, you get out of that victim mentality of where it's going to spiral day in and stay out, day out. And I've seen it at my affiliate, right? I've seen people who they get in really tough headspaces and they
Mhm.
compromise.
They
Well,
do.
I'm not going to come this week. And then it just rolls. Well, I'm not going to get up early and journal, and it just compromises over and over again. One thing I did want to ask you, outlets,
Mm.
right? And so as
Mm.
we're dealing with comments from social media, as we're dealing with a larger audience looking at you, thankfully not me, um, are there outlets that you use to help get some of those thoughts out?
This is going to spark an interesting conversation. This might actually go into the homework assignment this week because I thought that some of my outlets were helping me, but I think some of my outlets were inadvertently creating more stress. So, like in my brain, like dealing with the emotions of the change, like I would throw myself into just more work, and
Hmm,
the rationale in my head was if I can just keep my brain busy, then I won't think about it and then I'll just get over it. But the problem is that you don't just get over it, you just move on to something else. You like basically what happens is you dive into work or you dive into something and you just pretend this doesn't happen,
hmm.
but then it's going to surface later. You know what I mean?
So
And
you're
so
just
I thought
you're repressing that. Yeah.
that's all that I was doing. And so you came to me this week and you said, well, you set it up. And why? Because I'm curious where that came from.
Yep.
Like,
Let me
did you
pull up my
notice
notes.
something?
No, let me pull up my notes here. All right, so I came to you this week and I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I want you to journal these
Uh-huh.
things.
Yeah.
Things that cause your emotions to get out of whack and start to
Yeah.
get a rise out of you." And then
Yeah.
the other caveat was moments where you see God's hand on the journey with me. Now, the first part, things that cause my emotions to get out of whack and start to get a rise out of me. So
Yeah.
I've just learned in my own life and dealing with a lot of people that I've been able to work with, like, man, emotions can be something that can be big and heavy at times. And if we allow our emotions, our feelings to take over the facts, that
Yeah.
could be a downfall, right? And so for you, just thinking about like, okay, where's Athena at in her life? Well, she's going through this transition of coaching. She's
Yeah.
on a platform to where people have a pretty intimate view of her life.
Yeah.
She has this journey ahead of her that is a challenge.
Yeah.
And so her emotions can easily get out of whack because you and I both know, right? Comments can derail or
Yeah.
comments can uplift. And so I
Yes.
wanted to start tracking some of your emotions because then my question, right, which I've done to before, hey, tell me how you cope with that. And like that's gonna be the $1,000,000 question of Athena. How are you coping with these things? Because you and I both know there's healthy and unhealthy. And if you want to touch on this just briefly, we could do this at
Yeah.
another time, but like
Yeah.
go back to some of the things from childhood and how we coped, we carry that into adulthood.
I would say that trigger was there. I probably had way more apples than I should have over that 2 weeks, but it didn't hurt me.
Yeah.
But that connector piece is still there because that's the first place I went. Now, thankfully, during this, I don't have anything in my house that's bad. So even if I, wanted to I'm going to go for the chocolate. I don't have any chocolate here. There's
Yeah.
nothing, like
But
I got
that's
rid of
great
all that stuff
discipline though,
in
but
January.
like,
I
hey,
know.
it does need to be in my
Yeah.
house. So as you were journaling that this week, right? What
Yeah.
are some of the things that came out? What was unexpected that came out you didn't expect to happen?
Like something good or something bad?
Both.
Um, something good that I wasn't expecting. That I was not expecting to feel as good on my homework assignment last night as I did. That
Nice.
was refreshing. Something bad that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting so many people to come. Well, okay. So what happened was it came up. This topic thing came up on a podcast, and somebody had made a comment about, well, Athena just needs therapy. That's
Mhm.
why. And, this previous coach wasn't into that shit, I think is something along those lines. And what happened because of that is that suddenly I'm getting 100 DMs. That's what happened. And then these stories run and they're like, oh, you effing help and you need this and you need that just because of that one thing. So like people see a comment, an assumption made by somebody else, and they're like, oh, see, it's up on the screen. That must be it. And then they run with it.
It
And before
must
you
be
know
true,
it,
right?
this herd of people, it must be true. And this herd of people is like, what are you doing? Oh, is this what you did? And I knew that you weren't going to be able to follow through. And I'm like, wow, really?
Are you
So
still
I
giving weight to that comment?
probably,
I love how you paused right there. You went,
probably.
damn it, that was a good question. So so stay right there, right? Stay right there for a second. So here is
Probably.
some here is someone who's not in Athena's circle, who doesn't know Athena personally. If I'm making assumptions, please correct me. Who has no insight into your day to day, has no weight on your worth and value as a human being, but yet we are letting that comment hold us captive.
It did. Maybe because my feelings were hurt. I'm sure that's
Yeah.
probably why.
Yep.
Because when I think about this, it's not a counseling pillar. This is like literally like God wasn't really. He wasn't part of that first part of the journey as I really wanted him to be. This has always been one of my values. This is not a secret to anybody that knows me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, maybe if like, having that mindset coach and somebody that understands that this whole journey is 80% of it, or somebody that understands that like how important that God piece is for me. If that means that this is a counseling session, okay.
Well, I mean, sorry for
But
anyone who
that's not
thinks
how
I'm
I
a
see it.
counselor. Yeah, anyone who thinks I'm a counselor, I'm definitely
Does
not
that
a
make sense?
counselor. Yeah. So let's talk about. So I had you do a homework assignment last night, and you were like, and I'll be honest, you were like, "This is embarrassing. What am I
You're
doing?"
breaking up,
But
Gordon.
I want to. Oh, sorry. All right, are we good now? Let's see here. All right, we good? Oh, we
Just
still
hear
there?
Gordon, or is it me?
So I can totally hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah, we good now?
Do you guys see Gordon?
Yeah. So
I can
yeah,
hear.
Kristen says she can
Okay.
hear me.
Okay, Kristen can
Oh
hear
man.
Gordon. Why can't I hear
Oh,
Gordon?
Athena, they can't hear you. This is the downfall. So hopefully So hopefully we'll come in here. Athena will come
Okay.
back in here, but I'm gonna kind of set this up,
Yeah,
right?
hold on one second.
All right, cool.
Okay. Can you hear me?
All right. Yep. You good? All right. Yeah, they
Am
can
I
hear us
here?
both, so we're good. Yeah, you're good. Yep,
Oh,
we can hear
oh,
you.
good.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna set this up. So we talk a lot about being able to have your cup filled up. And so I talk to a lot of people in my life about, hey, we all have a propensity to pour so much out of ourselves and constantly do. And we're not taking time to invest back into ourselves. And so I challenged Athena saying, hey, I want you to find time this week to do something that's going to fill your cup back up. And what was that, Athena?
Right.
Oh, I think we're totally delayed here. Athena, remember that thing I asked you to do on Thursday night? All right, we'll get this right.
Can you hear
Hold on
me?
one sec.
I don't know why I'm having.
All right, you there?
Yes,
And you can hear me, right?
I can hear you. I can't see your picture
Yeah.
though.
Well, now you can see
There
me. It's
you
because I had
are.
my camera off.
Ah,
Okay.
ta-da!
Wow. Tech technology. All right. So, Athena, did you hear what I said about why we set that
It's
assignment
great.
for last night?
What did I do last night?
Yep. Yeah. So last night
I
you
went
had
and saw
something
a
to do for
movie.
me.
Saw a
So tell
movie
me why. Yep. Why did you go do that?
because you said I needed to do something that was actually going to fill my cup. And my initial was like, I'm going to get organized or I'm going to do some stuff to get myself caught up because it's been a long 2 weeks. And you're like, is that going to fill your cup? And I'm like, well, I thought by getting organized that would fill my cup. But when you say it like that, not really.
Yeah.
It was just me trying to feel better, you know? So you come and you're like, okay, what movie are you going to go see? And I was like, shit. Okay. So then I had to go look it up. Then I go look it up. I come back to my phone. I'm like, okay, Gordon, I'm going to see this movie. And you're like, when? Shit. Then I had to go back to the website. Okay. There's a movie playing Thursday at 6:45. And you're like, well, I said Thursday. And you're like, what time? And I'm like, well, we're doing that. Like, oh,
Yep.
I'm going to have to actually go buy the ticket
Yeah.
and show you that I'm committed to this. Okay, no problem. Which is what I did.
So why do you think I
And I'm
asked you
glad
to
I
do
did it.
all of that? Yeah. Why do you think I asked you to be so specific as time, movie, when?
I think because when we don't get specific, it's easy to either casually forget it or we don't prioritize it. That's why.
Yep.
At
And
least that was
with
how I
you
interpret it.
And with you, right, what I've realized is you can be pulled in a million directions, right? We know you've got a full-time job. We know you coach and teach. We
Yep.
know you travel. We know you
Yep.
have this
Yep.
platform. So I knew in that moment, if we
Yep.
do not nail this thing down, Athena's going to text me Friday morning and say, well, some things came up, but, I feel good. And like I told you this from the get-go, I'm a firm believer that like I love working hard. I absolutely love working hard and investing in people and doing what the Lord's called me to do. But if we're trying to invest in people and like you said earlier, inspire, we can inspire from an empty cup. And so my challenge is always going to be to you, Athena. What are we doing this week to fill our cup up?
It's true. It's true. And it was a great assignment. Like I forget stuff like that. I mean, I said in the text that it was embarrassing because it kind of was, like, why is it so hard to go out and do something fun? Why do I always feel like I have to be busy doing something? Because it's just adding more anxiety. I don't know why I
Yeah.
do that.
I think too, it's like we've gotten into this culture where we just go because if we're being super honest, and this is me too, this probably isn't just you, and I'll own this in my own self. If I'm not busy, I have to sit with my own thoughts, and that can be scary at times.
Sitting with our own thoughts, I think that's part of it. I think maybe there's another part that is like we feel guilty when we're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody the other day said, like they had to take a break because they were going through some medical stuff. But then one of the things that she said was that I felt guilty because I
Hmm.
wasn't doing anything. Like, why do we feel guilty? You know what I mean?
I've got a good friend, and he's a pastor, so I'm just gonna say that first. So of course, right, he gives great advice. And so he was like, "Isn't it cool, man, how we think that Jesus needed to rest on the seventh day, but we don't?" And like, I'm like, "Oh, come on, you're gonna hit me with that?" But it is like so true, and like what I've learned in my own life is the more that I can fill my cup up, then the greater I'm going to be to serve and support others. And I think of
That's
that
true.
so much with you and this journey that we're going to be on. And like, if you
Hmm.
thought like the movie theater was funny, we're going to do things every single week. But the goal is that your soul is filled up. So not only can we drive harder into the changes we're wanting to do, but that your platform that you can continue to be a light to everybody.
I think that goes back to like the original, like what was the inspiration for that third pillar, you know? And while everybody laughs, I wanted to address the part of it and the part that nobody seems to want to talk about. And that is like how, like what you just said, how do we possibly help other people if we are not getting our cups filled somehow? You know what I mean? Like if we're always tired and we're always anxious and always whatever, how are we going to be our very best for other people if we're not getting what we need to, you know?
No, that 100% agree. And do you think it's actually applying that in our own lives? Right? We can give that
Totally.
advice all yeah. Like I can tell
Totally.
everyone all the time, you need to do this. But then if I'm applying that to myself, I'm like, no, it's fine.
Right. Right. So I appreciate it. It's everything, you know?
Yeah. So before we wrap up,
Mhm.
I have a challenge to you.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. So you and I both talked about when this whole coaching thing came, you had a lot
Yeah.
of people that were interested in being a part of your journey.
Yes.
So you did something that caught my eye. You went back through my social media and actually took time to learn about me, which I highly respected, right? Rather than just being like, hey, do you want to do this thing with me? You went and learned about me. Help
Right.
me understand why.
Well, um I felt like there was a reason I needed to go back there. Because I didn't know you that well. I mean, that's part of it. Um I have this mutual friend who has been a mutual friend for a while. And she like this is how God shows up, you know. She's talked about her coach for a long, long time. She's talked about her coach in multiple times throughout this journey. And I had seen your name pop up. And I think one of the first things that you had reached out, I was like, hey, we need to bring the seminar to North Carolina. And I'm like,
Yep,
that would
South
be cool.
Carolina, close enough.
Or South Carolina. Why do I keep doing that? It's all Carolina to me. So you said, okay, let's talk about it after the end of the open. I was like, oh, cool. That would be gnarly, right? Well, when you reached out, you said something really funny to me. We should cover this imposter syndrome topic, because one of the first things you said to me was, hey, Athena, I don't have a big platform, but I'd love to be your coach. First of all, I thought that was the sweetest thing ever. But something told me to go back to your profile one day, and I'm like, and I, like, okay, I saw your name. I'm looking at your pictures, and I came across a video. And one of the very first videos that I watched that actually was such a loud statement for me. You were on a podcast talking about men's mental health, talking about the dangers of like when men are not well, healthy, whatever. And I was like, shit, like there's a lot of good nuggets here. And, that led me to the next one, and I'm listening to that one, and then I'm listening to the next one. And I think that's where I started putting that together in my brain. But what happened was I'm going down and I'm watching video by video by video, trying to learn about you. Why was there like a push to come back here so many times? And then I think I found it. And that on each of your posts and videos, I would see this mutual friend. And I'm like, oh, how does she know Gordon? This is crazy. Small world. And then I go to the next one. Oh, here she is again. And then I go to the next one. Oh, and then I go to her profile and I did some scrolling. I'm like, wait a second. Wait a damn second. This is the coach that she'd been talking about this entire time.
Yeah.
Like, I knew you, but I didn't know you. I've known of you for years, but I didn't know that you were you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
And
she
to
had talked
me,
about me. You'd seen pictures. You just didn't know, wait a minute, this dude is that dude.
I did not make the connection until that day. And so I took that as there was a reason that I got the prompt to come back here. And it was through those videos that I realized, like, wow, we share our love of faith. We share our love of like the mindset piece. Everything that you talked about seemed like it was that missing pillar for me. And I'm like, that's the guy.
Well, like I remember when I reached out to you, right? And I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I've
Yeah.
reached out to Athena as like a joke, being like, yeah, I didn't see the invitation to talk. And my wife just like laughed at me like, you're an idiot. She's not going to respond to you. And then you responded to me, and we talked about this our first meeting, but I remember like Annie, that's my wife, being very
Yeah.
much like, hey, do you have the bandwidth to do this? Because like I told you, like I work full time and I run an affiliate, and then I have another business, and so it's
Yeah.
like,
All of us.
yeah, and so I never want to not do my part working with an athlete. And after you and I had the conversation, you're like, hey, here's what I want your role to be.
Right.
Like, so much weight came off of my shoulders. And I was like, oh
Why
my,
did that happen? Why did that happen for you?
yeah. So boy, we're turning this around here. I see what you're doing to me
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Turning this around. Um,
You know?
yeah, so for me, like being super transparent, right? I have phenomenal people in my life. Makes me emotional. Great people. But also too, I struggle that there are times in my life, people just use me for things they need. And I struggle with that, right? That I am just a service to some people. That they're like, hey, I pay you for this. I need this. Thanks. That there is no relationship, and everything's transactional. And so
Oh,
when you came to me and you're like, hey, I don't need you to do my nutrition. I don't need you to do my workouts. I need you to help me with mindset and faith. There was such a weight that was lifted off me, because I said, Athena just wants me to be myself. And like when we got off our first call, I told my wife, I was like, that was an answered prayer, because I told you I've been praying about whether to do this thing, because I don't want to get into something that I can't give my full heart to. And so I
right.
said, Annie, she just wants me to be me and just have conversations with her to help grow her faith and her mental sharpness. I said, that is so life giving to me. That is not work for me. Like,
Yeah.
and so, and then all of our conversations since have been so life giving to me. It's not like, oh man, I got to check on Athena. It's like, yo, how was your day? Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a good question.
It was a great question because that same, like, oh, was the same thing that happened with the other two coaches.
Yes.
Like, it's the same look that we get in the seminar when I'm like, you don't have to do all of this. And you can see their faces like, oh, because like one person can't. That's why.
And
'Cause
it's
he can't.
okay. And it's
It's
okay for a
okay.
coach. Yeah, like I learned like in my life when, I had my athletes and they were going through tough mental times. I was like, hey, I cannot help all of you through your mental battles. That's why we brought on the sports psychologist. I'm like, hey, I can't do this. I can't
Mm-hmm.
carry all of that weight. And so you're ahead of the game because not one coach can carry this weight. And
Right.
like you and I are firm believers in this, right? Their steps have already
Yep.
been ordained. These
Yep.
conversations that you've had have already been ordained and in place. And I will say, I'll touch on the imposter syndrome thing just like briefly. That is 100% my own insecurity, right? And like, I look at your other coaches and super transparent, like phenomenal, like phenomenal individuals with such a baseline of knowledge that I am excited to learn from. And also too, just like great platforms. And I think I joked with you. I was like, Athena, I'm just this dude from the South. Like, I don't have like nobody knows about me, and I just own a gym and I'm known in my town, and that's it. And so like, man, I battled for like 2 days of like, I can't do this. I'm not that person. I don't have this platform. And then even like the enemy was like, oh, you're gonna let her down. You're gonna post something about your beliefs that's gonna upset her, and then you're gonna be gone. And then I had to realize, like, Gordon, this is all the enemy and all your own insecurities. And I've got some really good friends who were just like, hey man, look, right? Like you've got to understand that the Lord is gonna bring things into your life that you are unqualified for. And that's cool because he qualifies the called and
I
he's going
believe
to
that.
focus on doing that. And so
Yeah.
like whenever I moved to the side and got over that and just have been allowing myself to be present with you and the gifts that God's given me, it's been a freaking blast.
See, and I don't know why you do that because to me, like, this is an area where I think a lot of coaches struggle. And in my opinion, like, if you were to talk to some of the people at your gym, which I have, that's how they see you. And for good reason. You know what I mean? Like, the coaches that you talk about may not be comfortable enough in this area to speak on it the way that you have.
Hmm.
I get where it comes from, though. We all have it.
Dude, we do, man. We all have it. And I think, yeah, we all have it. In my personal opinion, is just like just the enemy's ways to keep us down a little bit and be like, nah, nah, nah,
Totally.
God's not using you for greatness, when you and I both know like he's using us for amazing things.
Yes, I believe that.
All right, so tell us your schedule of when you're going to be meeting with coaches.
Whoa, that's a great question. So some of this stuff is still getting like organized. The idea when it's like on a well-oiled machine is that there's going to be a coach on the check-in every week.
Nice.
Maybe sometime like maybe every like 6 days or so.
Cool.
So that it's going to rotate. Now probably while Pete he's amazing, by the way.
Yeah.
I call him my like this guy. He reaches out and he's like, "Hey, I might be late to the party." And I was like, "Late to the party?" And I was like, "That's the sweetest thing ever, by the way." I was so like the fact that he would even take the steps that he did to get a hold of
Yeah.
me. But when I told him, the plan is for this third coach, but it's going to be a little while. And he agreed to just be my coach in the interim for however long he gets to be my coach. And so that was such a cool thing. But I would love it if he could join us and do at least one of these with us. But the idea is to just get it kind of on a well oil so that every week it's talking about different topics. So
Yes.
this is your
Yep.
pillar. That coach would be talking about like the movement and like what we're trying to do. There's some differences in what we were trying to do a couple weeks ago. So that looks a little bit different, and the challenges
Yeah.
are different there. And then Caroline, obviously, we talk nutrition, but we're not really talking about nutrition per se. It's more like I was trying to think of like a creative way to put it. Like we're really talking about a fuel bucket because sleep is going to affect.
Yeah.
Sleep is also our fuel. It's like all the little things that kind of fall under that bucket that are going to affect our performance every day. So it's not just what we eat, right? It's what we're doing. It's our
Well, I think with
schedules, our sleep,
it's like
all that stuff.
sustainable habits with Carolyn. Like she wants to
Right.
instill sustainable habits, and that's what I love about her.
Oh, she already set me up with a bedtime routine that like it's not just having a bedtime. It's like you have this whole thing that you do before you go to bed for like that whole hour. But holy shit, when I did it this week, I was like, I'm actually getting stuff done. And I'm getting everything done by the time that I wanted to go to bed because you're forcing yourself to do things in that time bucket.
Hmm.
And then before you know it, by the end of the week, I'm like, now I know what I'm doing. And then it just becomes as easy as making your bed.
Well, I know too. I'm just like looking forward to the conversation with multiple coaches because I think they're all going to give just great avenues of education, information that we can all learn from too. But I'm excited to see
Yeah.
just how you grow as a human now
Yeah.
that you're focusing on all three buckets rather than saying like, hey, I just want one person to handle this all. So like, I'm just excited about the next couple months just to see the growth that comes from it.
Me too. It's
So
going to be fun.
before I jump off here, I do have to make fun of you for one thing. Are you
What
cool
did
with
I
this?
do?
All right.
Have at it.
So you put up a video of you squatting, right?
Today?
We call that the thirst angle. You know why we call that the thirst angle, right?
No.
Oh, I'll let people in the comments tell you why that's the thirst angle. But you had that angle. You know, I know you got a man sending you flowers every now and then.
Oh,
So,
geez. I don't even
maybe,
know who that guy is, by the way.
I know that
I'm
I thought that was pretty funny where you're like, I don't even know who this is, but this person. How did they get your address?
They sent it to Scaled Nation, care of me.
Interesting. Interesting.
Well, Scaled Nation is
Yes.
they're right out there. So
Yeah.
that's who they were addressed to. My name, care of Scaled Nation.
What's it like to have secret admirers?
Uh uh, I thought it was very sweet, actually. I was very touched by it. These were not cheap flowers.
Okay. Okay.
Somebody put a lot of thought into them. So whoever they're coming from, it's very sweet. I thought I would be creeped out by it, honestly, but I'm
Yeah.
not, oddly. But I started getting like, letters and cards and they just keep coming. And
Okay.
I put them out on the wall. But it's super cool. It's sweet.
Maybe one day we will meet this individual.
Yeah, you never know. Hey, okay, you can't leave me hanging like that. You got to tell me what the angle is. It's because my ass is like in that funny angle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
are we
The
talking
peach,
about a Carolina peach here or what?
yes, thank you. It's the peach angle, right? So it was that squat video peach angle.
Okay, I get it.
Uh,
So Pete wanted multiple angles. So I took one from the back because I wanted him to see
glad you didn't
like
post that one.
I couldn't get all the way down. And I was like, I was at the bottom trying to like, and I couldn't get it.
Well, I'm sure your
Golly.
followers just bumped up about 5 or 10,000 just from that angle. Oh my God, Kristen, I bet he did. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh
Oh
gosh.
gosh.
Oh, all right. Well, I have a hot
Thanks
date
a
with my
lot,
wife.
Gordon.
Yeah, I've
Tell
got a hot
Annie I
date with
said
my wife.
hello.
I will, but I appreciate you in this time, and I
I
will talk to
appreciate
you
you.
in 5 minutes.
You got it.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.